we're going to have a chat about something that you may not want to have a chat about. Hi guys, it's Katie here, host of the Katie Knits podcast and the Katie behind Katie DeGroff Knits. And I want to have maybe an uncomfortable conversation with you about gauge. And I am not here to preach, checking your gauge before every project and exactly matching the designer's recommended gauge. I'm not here to do that. I am talking about your personal gauge changing. Over time, it can. I had heard rumors about this. I'm like, that's not going to happen to me. What the heck? I am who I am, and I knit the way I knit, and it'll be fine. It'll block out. It doesn't always block out. Your gauge can change. And I'm going to tell you my personal experience with it. I changed it to complete the project that it was affecting and the things that changed in my life to cause this to happen. First off, I had a long lost whip for 4 years. It sat in a bag. It was my Gutter Flower wrap. It was a match made in heaven between the yarn and the pattern. Flew to 95% done. Then I went and sat in a bag for 4 years. Well, during a deep stash reorganization, which you can also check out my video for, I'll link it above, I discovered this whip. And I was like, why is it not done? 95% done. Why is it not done? It needs 3 pattern repeats. 3. Probably take me an hour. What the heck? So I put it on my kitchen table where it would completely annoy me until I got it done. It was done the next day. But I pull it out, right, and I've got the pattern, and I work up the first couple rows, and I look back at it to make sure I'm in the spot I need to be. And I noticed that the couple rows that I just worked looked very loose and like lumpy, and I'm like, what the heck? I was thinking I was maybe off in where I thought I was in the pattern because I didn't keep notes, but it was a pattern that is very easy to see where you are. No, I wasn't off. I did the pattern correctly. My gauge changed after I had a slight mental breakdown over this because it was something that I thought could never happen to me, and it did. After I picked myself up off the floor, I was like, okay, this happened. How am I going to fix it? I had the project on metal needles, and I always typically knit looser on metal needles. So I switched to wooden needles. I went from a slick metal to a grippier wood. That did it. I was able to rip out those couple rows and work it up on my grippier wooden needles. And that was enough to change my gauge back to what it was when I originally started the pattern. For me, in that moment, I just had to change the needle composition type to fix that. I would highly, highly, highly recommend if you have a whip that's been there for more than a year, especially if it's a garment, do yourself a favor and check your gauge again. Just make sure it hasn't changed. It can happen to anyone. I didn't think it was going to happen to me. I was naive and I was very closed-minded in this fact, but it happened. It happened. I was able to fix it by changing my needle, and that was enough. I didn't have to go down in needle size. It may have blocked out before, but I really didn't want to go that route and finish it and then have the very last 2 inches be, an inch wider than the rest of it. I didn't want to do that. It was too pretty of a piece. And if you're going to make something and you're going to take the time and put the effort into it and love and care and maybe some of your hair and some swear words, you want to make it as best as you can. So, like I said, you had something on the needles for more than a year, do yourself a favor and check your gauge. It may save you a project, and it may save you a very special project. Now let's dive into why my gauge changed. And I'm going to tell you about this because you may find yourself in a similar situation. When I first began knitting over 15 years ago, I was a very, very, very tight knitter. I would wrap my yarn so tight around my finger that it would be white or blue. I would have to alternate and take breaks because my fingers would go numb. I was also at the time an extremely anxious person. I dealt with a lot of stress and anxiety in my life, and panic attacks and anxiety attacks. And it was something, not going to get too deep into it. I did seek help and treatment from medical professionals. I'm good now, but definitely don't rule that out. But my anxiety and my stress was causing the tightness, and the almost, my stress was oozing out of me into my knitting, and it was so tight. So tight, my gauge was so small. I am a much, much more relaxed person, which has loosened my knitting. Just for, shits and giggles, I had checked my gauge compared to what it used to be, and I have gone up at least a stitch to a stitch and a half in both rows and stitch direction, both ways. I have gone way up. I would absolutely recommend rechecking your gauge. And even if you aren't a gauge person and you're not knitting a garment, it may be interesting. Just may be interesting for you to check that. There's a lot of ways you can change it. You can always amend your needle size, or like I did, you can change type, the composition of your needles. I went from slick metal to a grippy wood. It was enough for me. But this can happen to anybody. And I was able to finish my piece, and it's perfect now. And next time I go to knit a garment, it's going to be interesting because I may need, a little less yarn because my gauge is bigger, but I may have to go down some needle sizes. I think we get complacent over time that we're always going to stay the same, and we change. Our lives change, our situations change. Your knitting can change with you. So it's okay. It's perfectly okay. We can fix this. We can amend our ways to make it work. That being said, I'm going to let you to go check your gauge, or go see if you have some long lost whips that this may affect. Maybe fun to check your gauge anyway. See if it's changed. And if it has, now you know what to amend. All right, I'm out of here. I'm Katie, host of the Katie Knits podcast and the Katie behind Katie DeGroff Knits. So if you've liked this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you'll get notified when I post a new video. So happy knitting, guys!